We all know that LSU is trying to find some rhythm in the passing game. I found it interesting, and it was something that I agreed with, and you've heard me say this if you listen with any sort of frequency. Brian Kelly said last week, like, we've got to find some rhythm in the passing game. We were elite at that last year, and we just haven't really found it. And everyone wants to harp on the running game for good reason. You got to get better running the ball. You have to get better running the ball. But LSU's also got to get better at passing the ball, and I feel like the path to substantial improvement passing the ball is easier explained because you've got a quarterback who's done it and wide receivers who have done it, and the offensive line hasn't been terrible in pass protection. Like, I just feel like they need to find more in the passing game, and that certainly is going to entail some help from the running game to displace the defense and allow some cleaner windows to throw through. But one of the other things that Brian Kelly was asked about on Monday and talked about was the rotation at wide receiver. Nobody's really broken out at this point from a wide receiver perspective. Barrion Brown has 25 catches to lead the way, 239 yards. That's under 50 yards a game. Aaron Anderson has played in 5 games. One of those was cut short in Oxford, obviously, but he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Xavier Thomas has a pair of touchdowns, but he's got 178 yards total receiving on the season. Kyle Parker has got 9 catches for 91 yards and a score. Nick Anderson has 2 touchdown catches. One of them wasn't even thrown to him. He just caught it off the ricochet. You've got all these talented guys, and you haven't necessarily gotten anybody going. And the question to Brian Kelly was like, how do you handle the rotation of your wide receivers over the course of a game?
I think last week or 2 weeks ago, you saw less personnel moving in and out of the game at the wide receiver position. We were setting almost every play for a particular player, and in some instances that's good, but sometimes you don't get the flow of the game, right? There's 2 things going on. So I think we felt more comfortable what the rotation was last week in terms of our receivers being in and out of the game.
It's interesting. That's saying that we've got different wide receivers. We know that. They have different skill sets. Barrion Brown's skill set doesn't look like Nick Anderson's skill set. Xavier Thomas's skill set doesn't look exactly like Nick Anderson's skill set. You're talking about guys that have differing abilities. Chris Hilton and Kyle Parker don't play the same. So you're trying to get guys on the field to do the things that they do best. And maybe that's creating a little bit of a disjointing effect. You can't get into a rhythm. Maybe there are too many guys that Garrett Nussmeier is trying to get in tune with, and it's just hard to do that with 5 or 6 guys as opposed to 2 or 3. In 2019, you knew who it was going to be. It was going to be Chase, Jefferson, Marshall. That's it. Those are the guys. 2 years ago in 23, like Neighbors, Thomas, Lacey. You knew. And well, I don't think LSU has anybody of Jamar Chase's capability on this team. I don't think anybody has Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors' capability on this team. I think there's something in continuity, and it just hasn't quite worked itself out. So the question is, like, who do you need to go to more often? And I think the answer right now, they feel like Barrion Brown, Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas are the guys that are the most consistent. Now, those guys are all sub 6'1". They're all quick. They're all fast. You don't have a lot of catch radius with any of them. You don't have a lot of size to box defenders out. You don't have a lot of leaping ability. So it's a lot of the same stuff. And maybe Nick Anderson gives you some of that. And certainly Trey'Dez Green gives you that. And I don't want to sit Chris Hilton for 4 quarters, but he hasn't been involved very much. Chris Hilton's got 4 catches. His long of the year is 11 yards. So maybe you're going to see that tighten up. I can't give you a definite on that, but it sounds like that from what Brian Kelly is saying, and it feels like that's coming. And he gave another quote on kind of getting the passing game up and running with a little bit of continuity.
I think at the end of the day, it's more explosive plays. We were 1 of 7 when we threw the ball down the field. We've got to hit some of those shots that we came up short on. Those are big plays that usually led themselves for us to touchdowns. So big plays down the field, we've got to hit on those. And then I think finding a nice rhythm offensively where we're not, going over the boards every time, on a shift change. We've got to be a little bit more consistent with our flow.
Does this feel any different if Garrett Nussmeier hits Barrion Brown on the first drive against Tech and hits Chris Hilton in the second half against Ole Miss? Like, does this discussion feel different? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with that hypothetical. It was one throw against Louisiana Tech. It was in the first drive. If he misfires like he did the rest of that night, do I feel differently about it? I'm not sure. You hit that big play to Hilton against Ole Miss, maybe you feel a little bit differently. And if I'm allowed to take that hypothetical one further, am I allowed to go, well, if he does that, you feel like he's healthy and that everything's available to you and that you have hit some big plays, the numbers look a little bit better. And Nussmeier adds 65, 70 yards against Louisiana Tech. He adds 40 more against Ole Miss. That's another 100 yards, 20 yards per game. It's 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I still haven't given up on them being really good throwing the ball. I have kind of given up on the run game. I've kind of given up. If they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. But I said for anyone to hear 2 weeks ago, this show, pregame on the network, interview in Shreveport, interview in Lafayette, interview in New Orleans, writing on LouisianaSports.net, anywhere anyone consumes any of my content, I said they're not going to run the ball on Ole Miss. Yeah, I know Ole Miss is the worst run defense in the SEC. I know. But they're way better than Southeastern. They're way better than Tech, and LSU couldn't run it on them. So why would I think they were going to step up and run against Ole Miss? I've given up on that to an extent. I have not given up on their ability to throw the ball better. And I don't know how I would handle the rotation at wide receiver. I see great reasons to have Barryon Brown out there, to have Aaron Anderson out there, to have Bauer Sharp out there, to have Nick Anderson out there, to have Chris Hilton out there, Tradez Green. Like, I see reasons to get all those guys involved. If you tell me that it's better for the quarterback to rep all week with 3 guys and put those 3 guys out there more often, I'll understand that too. That has to be something the coaches figure out. But something's got to get better throwing the football. And if it's the quarterback's ab strain or a tightening of the wide receiver rotation or a change in defensive philosophy because you've run the ball more often, if not better, so be it. Like, it's up to the coaching staff to figure it out. I don't get paid to figure that out. But somebody's got to figure that out. And it sounds like to me some tweaks were made during the bye week. And I sit here on Wednesday for a Saturday game, and the optimist in me says, okay, and keep in mind, there's some pessimists there that just gave up on the running game. I'm not all optimist all the time, but I've given up on that. There's some optimism in me that goes, okay, the quarterback took a week off throwing, maybe healthier. The staff had a chance to self-scout, maybe saw some things. They think the wide receiver group can be tightened to increase continuity and create some more explosive plays down the field. Maybe it comes. Our discussion changes if they come out on Saturday and throw for 345 and 4 touchdowns, which is possible. Nussmeier torched this team through the air a lot of last year. I'm not calling it likely, and I'm telling you that the same conversation, I mean, they come out there and throw for 211 and no touchdowns and a pick, and Nussmeier ducks a deep ball, and you lose the game. Like, that changed our conversation too. That Monday conversation is not out of the question at all. But we're still looking for a change. And if the change doesn't come, the pessimism grows. If the change does come, the optimism can follow. And yes, I know. I came here after the Southeastern game and said I thought the quarterback looked healthy. I was wrong. He didn't look healthy against Ole Miss. I'm guessing on that. But we'll see. LSU in South Carolina. 6:45 on Saturday night in Death Valley. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.